Welcome to the VMJPod Graduate Recruitment Series, where we dive into the latest trends and innovations in early career hiring, featuring insights from industry top experts driving the future of talent acquisition.
Heather, welcome to VMJPod.
Thank you so much for having me. Very happy to be here.
I can put my notes down now. So I guess just to look, we all know each other pretty well, but for some of the viewers and listeners out there that maybe don't know you as well, do you want to give us a little bit of that career backstory so that they can know you as well as we do?
Yeah, for sure. So I was first in family to go to university, and I actually came from a low SES background, which I think people always find interesting, being that I'm one of the managers in grad recruitment at Deloitte. I didn't even know what a grad program was, to be honest, when I finished university. So I majored in psychology, and I thought I'll have 12 months off and work in recruitment. And 20 years later, here I am. Don't give away my age. I know. Well, I do love it, and I cannot imagine doing anything else. Yes, there are tough days and challenging times, but I love it. And I did 5 years in a recruitment agency, high volume. I did 5 years with an outsourcer. They were one of my clients who brought me across. Did a secondment for the CEO in HR, and realised I missed true recruitment, and thought, where can I use, my high volume skills in graduate recruitment and entry level, and decided that Deloitte was a place with a great brand and somewhere I could use my skills in a different way.
So how long has it been at Deloitte now?
Oh, technically, I think it's 11 years almost.
Technically.
Well, I did take 12 months off to have my beautiful daughter.
Totally fair. Yeah. All right. Well, guess to give everyone a bit of a sense of the scale of this challenge that Deloitte was facing. And, like we prefaced at the start, right? When you hear accounting, you don't necessarily think, accounting is a niche academic background. But what was the challenge? What was the problem that you started to see over the last few years?
Yeah, I think I started looking after audit and assurance when I came back from maternity leave, and I thought, cool, this is going to be easy. This is great. And it wasn't too bad when I first came back about 6 years ago. And every year it got harder and harder and harder. I went, what is going on? Why is this getting so challenging? And yes, consulting was very sexy, and a lot of people wanted to go and work in tech and STEM, and we recruit a lot of those roles. However, the shortage of accounting students was blowing my mind in Australia, and there were just not going to be enough accountants for Australia in general. So
is that because there's been a reduction in that type of employment, or less of an uptake through university?
Yeah, not in the employment, less of an uptake in university. Okay. So definitely less students studying accounting. So there had been a decrease sort of for the last 10 years, but the last 5 years, year on year, something crazy like 10 to 15% increase year on year. Okay. So a definite decrease. Yep. And then there has been some good news, and I partner quite a lot with CAANZ, and they're making some great changes to their program, which means it will open it up for more students. So some good news to come, some light at the end of the tunnel, but it has been very challenging.
So how did you go about partnering with CA? And has that been beneficial to leading to an outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that I've always done, but it's something that I've lent into more and more in the last couple of years. And I think partnering with also the other graduate accounting recruiters has been really important to me and to them, to be able to understand, is it just me? Or is it just you? Is it just the big four? Is it the mid-size? Like, what is going on? Is this in every state? And I think that gave us a bit of comfort, but also for us to understand, the lay of the land and honestly how we could get our unfair share of talent.
It strikes me as something really, really odd to see a brand like Deloitte struggling to get talent. And we naturally compete in certain markets for the same type of students. But I can still recall, maybe starting about 2 or 3 years ago, seeing you needing to do more direct, targeted advertising to this cohort, which I guess, you know, for me, kind of keeping an eye on the industry was probably my first point of going, something's going on here.
Yeah.
Something's not quite right. How have you then worked with your own internal stakeholders to get them to understand this isn't a Deloitte issue? You know, there's something bigger going on here, because that hiring manager engagement piece can be really tricky when you're struggling to find them talent that they need.
Absolutely. It's a really great question, because it took a while for the business almost to believe me, because they go, Heather, what are you talking about? We get thousands and thousands of applications.
Exactly.
And yes, we do. Great. But it's not so much the quantity, it's the quality of that quantity. And we need people who are CA eligible at a Big Four firm. So that means that we need students who have done a major in accounting or other subjects that are going to make them eligible to do their further accounting training. And so, you know, a large percentage of candidates were already knocked out just at the start of their application form when we ask them, are you CA eligible or not? And they will say no, and the system will automatically reject them.
Right, yeah, okay.
So your pool automatically gets decreased in half, and reporting is a big way that I would share with the hiring partners to say, yes, this is how many applications we got, but when you have a look at how many are not eligible, and then we have a look at how many are permanent residents or Australian citizens, because that was a barrier for a while. And thankfully last December, accounting was added to the skill shortlist. So from an immigration point of view, everywhere in Australia apart from Melbourne, we can take international students for accounting. So apparently there isn't a shortage in the Melbourne CBD, but regional Victoria there is.
Yep.
So great news for those of you that recruit in regional Victoria for accounting. And, you know, so there are some positive things there, but I think sharing the data definitely with the hiring managers had a big impact of showing them how that pool gets quite small, and saying to them, my job isn't just to fill your roles, my job is to give you quality candidates, and not just someone that can do it, but someone that also has the motivation to commit longer term. We're looking for people that want to stay for at least 3 years, that are going to do their CA, and hopefully some of them will stay longer and develop with the firm. Some of them might leave and go and be a client, work in industry, and a lot of them will boomerang back. And I think that's something I've really enjoyed, is being able to see my grads move up to director, and hopefully some of them a partner next year.
And then clearly start becoming your own hiring managers as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That is very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Yeah.
So in that hiring manager discussion where you've now started to articulate this isn't just a Deloitte issue, there's something more systemic going on, how has that need for innovation, need for change really driven, I guess, some of the different approaches that you've had to take over the last few years?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, you know, audit's really busy all the time. And so the team know that they need to go out on campus, and depending on their busy times, which often clash with ours, which is tricky, they will do everything they can to partner with us.
Yeah.
And so where they can come on campus with us to relevant events, that's great. Where they can do, you know, lectures, where they can sponsor student societies if we think there's going to be a good ROI, where we can have integrated learning students, often called work integrated learning, IBLs, sorry if I'm talking code, co-op.
No, it's all
They're different
good.
things with different unis around the country. Talking to them about all of the options, and also I think just reminding them that these are grad roles and we are looking for a diversity of candidates, so they're not all the same, and, you know, challenging them on some of their decisions around who we look for and where we look for them as well.
So trying to be, like, is the business open to being location agnostic if they can't be necessarily degree agnostic?
Yeah, so we recruit in all states across Australia.
Yep.
So generally speaking, we're led by the student. So we will say, what do you want to do and where do you want to work? We want people to get out of bed and enjoy what they're doing. It's, we don't want to force them, I've got a job here, you live there, I want you to take that job. So it's quite important to us. So we work hybridly, we have a hybrid recruitment process, and the hiring managers, whilst they would love to meet them face to face, they know that if they're from New Zealand or if they're overseas on, placement or travelling or whatever, they will do virtual assessments. We invest quite a lot in marketing, we invest quite a lot in tech. So if they can't help us physically, they will assist us even just with, referring people, sharing on socials, whatever it might be. Some of it's just the basic hygiene stuff that's so helpful, word of mouth. But I think because I've been working with them for a long time, we've built this level of trust. So my team can put people into assessment centres and we're not sharing CVs in advance. They are assessing the potential of that candidate and going from there. So luckily we have quite good strike rates, which is quite nice. So then it's keeping them warm, hoping they accept, and then keeping them warm so they don't renege, because it's an extremely competitive market. And so we know just because you've got a good candidate doesn't actually mean they're going to start with you.
How flexible have you had to be to accommodate the shortage in the market over the last few years? I'm assuming that a lot of the solutions that you just mentioned is as a result, but what was it like a few years ago compared to what it was like now?
Yeah, it's a challenging market, and it's challenging for lots of different reasons. There are more grad recruitment programs, I think, than ever before. So that leads to big challenges. But when there are less accounting students and when there are, I think, challenges around even the students knowing what makes them eligible, and I think the careers teams at universities are amazing. I think lots of them come from industry, which is why they're amazing as well. But even they don't necessarily know all the ins and outs as well. So I think that's why I decided to found the networking group I think we talked about. It's the Accounting Early Careers Advisory Network. And that came out of an AAGE conference last year. So I was a committee member for a couple of years, and I was facilitating a group with other recruiters who recruit for accounting. And we just said, we can't do this individually. This has to be a collective effort. We've all got points of difference, so we need to get together and work out what our points of difference are and make it easier for students, make it easier for the careers teams, make it easier for the academics to go, where are the opportunities, what do they look like, and who would be right where. Really, I know it sounds silly, but for the good of Australia, sometimes
Australia.
I mean, accounting, because, and especially in COVID, we couldn't get accountants from South Africa for experienced hire roles. We have to have that early pathway. And, if the Big Four aren't training them up and putting them through in the CA, there aren't accountants for the industry either. And I know that's, there are other options and other ways, but, it's looking at high school and what can we do collectively. So I was so excited that CA wanted to partner, and some of the midterms wanted to partner, and we are going to grow and develop our strategy there right across Australia, to inform students, unis, recruiters, and do what we can to help each other. And sometimes that means, I've met a great candidate on campus, but I don't have any roles left for that particular area, so maybe you do want to go and have a look at these opportunities as well.
And we've said on previous episodes just how collegiate the graduate industry is. We compete fiercely for talent, but we network, we share ideas, all of that kind of stuff. It's probably the reason why people like us have stayed doing this kind of job for such a long time. How have you all collectively gotten past that competitive piece, knowing that, there is a really different proposition between mid-tier accounting firm, small local accounting firm, the big four.
Yeah.
You know, right? And that natural drive of certain students are going to go after certain ones. How do you ensure that you're still maintaining that collegiate atmosphere?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, yes, we do have to be really careful of confidentiality and privacy, and we all respect that. And we won't ask questions that we know we shouldn't either, but we will, as a friend and as a colleague in the industry, we do share things for everyone's benefit. So I get as much out of it as I put in, and I think that's really important. And we all made a commitment on that day that if you were going to be part of our network, that you do need to put in as much as you take out. And so sometimes it's simple as just saying, hey, is anyone else going to this event today or next week? And it might be like, oh, I didn't know about that event. Oh, that sounds like a good one. Or I can't go to that. Was it any good? I'd love to hear what the ROI was. And really just to keep a sense on what's happening in the industry, I think is super important, especially with, some of the changes, the world with DEI and wanting to remain strong on all of those personally as well as professionally.
Yeah.
You mentioned high schools. What's the comms out to high schools to inform them that accounting's a great place to land post university?
Yeah, that's something that ACAN are really interested in, and that's something we'll probably be able to do more of outside of our typical busy season, where we're dealing mainly with university students right now. So it will be also partnering with CAANZ and might be going out to high schools together. It might be doing webinars because unfortunately none of us are resourced with staff or budgets to be going out and going to every individual high school. But it has to start there. We need high school students to be studying maths, to be able to get into university to do accounting, for example.
Yes.
We need them to know how many opportunities are available. So it's not just your old school boring, accountant at a desk, with accounting. You can do sustainability, you can be doing technology controls, you can be doing all sorts of things in finance and tax and assurance and some really amazing things that they can do. And I think when we start to share the stories of what our team members are actually doing, it's really quite interesting. And I get blown away when I speak to the teams about the projects they're working on. And I'm like, that actually sounds really fun.
Yeah.
So I think it's just making it, sexy again, really, but also sharing the fact that it's a really good, stable career, and being able to understand the health of a business is really important to your future career. I mean, most CFOs and CEOs come from an audit background. If you've got a great audit background, you've got amazing attention to detail, it sets your career up for a future in business. So a lot of people will love to hire those that have had a career in it. So to all the mums and dads as well, it's letting them know, hopefully some of them are listening, that they can have an amazing future. In accounting, and tax always needs to be done. Companies always need to be audited. It's not something that is optional. It's a great.
Not sure I've done my tax yet. That might be a good reminder to get that done.
This episode is brought to you by Video My Job, your go-to platform for creating branded employee videos at scale with zero editing. Authentic employee stories are the key to showcasing your culture and attracting top talent. Book a demo on our website and learn how to create hundreds of videos in under 60 days with full support from start to finish.
One of the interesting things that you were talking about when you're getting down to that high school level, for such, and I probably didn't really make the connection between accounting and STEM until you really laid it out. But, if you think about the messaging that's gone to high school students probably for the last 5 to 10 years is if you love maths and science and all the STEM-based subjects, you have to go into tech. Because if you don't go into tech, you won't have a job. Digital disruption, the birth of AI and all that kind of stuff. They've really ratcheted down on this notion, and governments have said this as well. Future jobs are tech jobs, or future jobs are tech-enabled jobs. And I think that's naturally gravitated students towards, careers in tech, and therefore that influences their university throughput. How are mean, yes, your advisory body, but, knowing that you've got this good connection with CA as well, what's the plan to start saying you've basically got a career for life now because there's such a shortage of accounting students?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just getting that message out there. And I think it will start to turn with the changes that CA are making. So instead of having to have 12 prerequisite subjects from a university, there's now going to be 6. So they're focusing on the 6 absolute core subjects that you must have. And that will open up the doors to a lot of finance and economic students that really want to be an auditor but didn't know when they signed up to university that was going to be a requirement, because sometimes the careers advisors naturally will say to them, do something broad so you've got lots of options. And that's great, but often that means, well, if I want to be an auditor or an accountant, now I can't be. So getting the message to them earlier about what they might like to do and having it up their sleeve, because they can still work in finance and economics if they're CA eligible, and it still gives them great opportunities. And it's a wonderful qualification, and it's hard, but it's worthwhile, very prestigious. Our clients love it. It will help you with future employability as well. Those learning and development opportunities are really well supported. But yeah, we are talking to first-year students, we're talking to second-year students, we're talking to third-year students. It's so important that they understand what it can look like in the real world, as opposed to just what they think it might have a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a messaging play. Definitely.
And I also think the way the world's going with technology and generative AI, like that's all in audit and assurance as well. And I think...
Is that creating efficiencies, or is that...
Yeah, definitely. The auditors will always be needed. There's always going to be that human element that's required. And maybe it's less of the boring work, but more of the actual fun work. And it will be... For example, in audit and assurance, we've got an analytics team. And so, they use all the information from the audits and with their analytics and their dashboards and, all their coding, which I don't understand. They do some amazing things with that. Even with technology controls, it's, information systems. So audit and assurance isn't just accounting. Assurance can be so many different things. And yeah, it's how do you get that message out? Because with so many employers, with so many opportunities, and so I think we're trying to focus just on the skill set moving forward, and for students not to be overwhelmed by all the companies and all the different names that we give our teams and our departments. It's just think about the skill set, because students these days are going to have probably 6 careers and 12 jobs, or I think it's probably more than that these days as well. So I always say to students, if you're having trouble deciding what to do, business and tech are an amazing combination that, can really give you so many opportunities. And I see that every day in audit and assurance as well. The tech is definitely relevant.
So what's the importance of understanding the differentiated value to be able to communicate those messages to attract the right graduates to your grad program?
Yeah, it's absolutely vital, and especially in this digital world, and being able to demonstrate that through videos with real candidates talking about projects they're working on and what they're doing in a short clip has been really helpful for us. Definitely the last 24 months we'll have people in a assessment centre saying, I saw that girl talking about this sustainability project that she's working on. Is that something that I could get involved in? And I think those values of learning and development are key. The diversity and inclusion is absolutely key. The culture is certainly a key one. I feel like a lot of employers do say similar-ish things sometimes. So it's just making sure that we are walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And so that's why it's really important to have our employees talking about it as well, I think.
And then you've got that advocacy piece, and I'm assuming in a niche market that you want to explore all channels.
Absolutely.
If we were to think from a social perspective, Have you seen mum and dads advocating for the business as well?
Such a good question. Yeah.
It is a good question. And when you say mum and dads, I would say that mum and dads in the firm would, maybe refer their kids or their friends or their neighbours.
Is that encouraged?
It is, but we have quite a strong integrity referral process.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might say it's even harder to get their kids through the process.
Is that right? Okay.
But, in a good way, I think we love referrals and they are so important to our business, but it still has to be, the right candidate that meets all of the criteria and goes through the same process. No matter where they come from, we don't mind what source, candidates come from, but they go through, the online application form, the online assessment.
There's no favours.
Digital interview. Yeah, there are no favours. But talent spotting is super important. So whether that is done on campus or through LinkedIn or through a student society or through an industry or whatever it might be. But in terms of mum and dad's advocating, I think that there's still some work to be done there. And it's quite interesting. I think some of the long-term opinions stick for a really long time with parents, and they're not always aware. Now, sometimes that works in my favour because we're a professional services firm and we do heaps of consulting, but a lot of the mums and dads go, oh yeah, they're an accounting firm. Now, we're not just an accounting firm, but great for me. That works for the teams that I recruit for. It's definitely most important, obviously, to, educate the students, but so helpful, if we can educate everyone around them who's going to be a big influence. Yeah,
because I would have thought a channel could be, well, you mentioned LinkedIn. That's what sparked the interest because typically grads are not synonymous with being on a networking site like LinkedIn.
They're getting better.
They're getting better, where they would be more, say TikTok, Instagram, etc.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the parents have a profile.
Yeah, definitely. And I think my take, and maybe it's my preference because I have had lots of luck from LinkedIn with graduate students, and I would say there probably aren't as many graduate recruiters probably using it in the same way that I use it. I've had lots of luck, and I have found that I can send a student a message on LinkedIn and they will apply almost automatically because they've got the app, it's on their phone. They go, oh, Heather's got a question for me. She's from Deloitte. She's the manager. Oh, great! I want to speak to her. So that works really well for me. And I think that we're going to remember these are Gen Z. They want quick. They want sharp. They get 1,000,001 emails. They get lots of text messages, and yes, that's easy for them. That's good for them, but they are very concerned about spam and is it real or not as well.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn shows that I'm quite a credible source. I'm verified. They know who I am, where I'm from. Easy to get in touch with me. Easy to see what's available. Videos, all the rest of it. So no, I think that's massively changing, and I think Gen Z are going to be the main, employee group in the not too distant future. And so the other interesting piece I thought, we do well out of Instagram, don't get me wrong. We do share video content there. And Facebook's still good, but not as much. That is probably more the older generations now, and I say older as in maybe me, but and my parents and their parents. But I would say TikTok is really for us just about marketing as opposed to applying. But also some students just don't want it blended. They want to have some of their social media just for their social stuff. They don't want to be necessarily bombarded with job applications, whereas others do. So, it's just about them finding the right avenue. And so sometimes LinkedIn is good because when they go to LinkedIn, well, this is for business, this is for uni, this is for career. I don't necessarily always want it, in the other places. But it's an individual choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely been some good research on that. Students wanting to keep their, let's say, their upcoming professional life and then their personal lives really, really separate, almost, to the point of going, I don't want to work for a company that's trying to ram content down my throat when I just want to look at cat videos, or I just want to do,
Yeah.
I just want to relax.
Yeah.
I don't want to tune out. I don't want to then go, oh, okay. And they're, trying to jump onto the latest trend or the latest meme or something like that. It's no, it feels too disingenuous.
Yeah.
It just seems like the pendulum continues to swing one way to the other.
Yeah.
So how are you often reflecting, doing a retro or reviewing persona types? And what would, if that's true, I'm assuming that it is, how often do you think companies should be thinking about personas in niches and reviewing those?
I feel like I almost do it all the time.
All the
every day.
time.
Like, I mean, that's not really true, but I mean, I try to stay across the research and the industry news, and I do attend lots of events, and that's why my network is so important to me as well. So I'm not meaning to name drop, but I mean, AAGE is an amazing source of information. They do some great surveys, so you can find out what's happening in the industry or in the state or in the whatever you like. Brightworks have done some amazing surveys on the student population, so not just those that are successful, but also the ones that aren't. I found that really helpful. Our employer brand team are amazing at what they do, and so they provide us with lots of data, what's working, what's not working. But we also speak to our grads and say, what worked for you? Where did you hear about us? But I also feel like they hear about us from lots of different ways. So sure, a friend might have told them about it, but they didn't actually apply until a few other things happened, and maybe they met someone on campus and went, that guy was really cool. Yeah, I'd like to work with him. Or actually their brands are really cool. I really want to work on those types of clients, or whatever it might be. I think that, they get it from all angles sometimes. It's not just my university career site
Yeah,
or
gotcha.
Grad Connection or Prospel or whoever. It's multi-channel.
I think you've probably name dropped everybody
Sorry.
in the industry so far.
I didn't mean to. Sorry if I missed someone.
No, that's all right. I'm sure Fusion will forgive you.
Oh my goodness, Fusion.
But I guess if we were kind of bring it back to, at some point, and, as Dave said, the pendulum swings, right?
Yeah.
And, in a couple of years' time, accounting may be back and everyone's doing accounting again, and then we've got another discipline or another business is really starting to struggle with that, that notion of niche talent and needing to attract it. Based on the journey that you've gone through, and I guess hearing the stories within this new advisory network that you've built, what would be the advice for, some of the employers that might be listening on what are some of the really key steps that they need to take to make sure that, okay, we've got a problem. How do we even start tackling it?
Yeah. And to answer your question properly, in with that, I would do a full review every season. So every year we would go back and have a look at, well, how many applications did we get, how many did we place, and what were the ratios, and where did they come from. So definitely starting with the data, absolutely, would be a first point of view, and working out what did have good ROI. And it's not always ROI. Sometimes it's this is just going to be for marketing and to be informative. And maybe we are not going to get conversions on this because we're talking to high school students, we're talking to first year students. It's going to take a while to measure and see that conversion. And it's also okay if by talking to them they decide, actually, that's not for me, because that's a good thing. We don't want people coming and working for us because mum and dad says it's a good idea, or the careers advisor says, Big Four or whatever. So definitely just find out what works for you, and really get feedback from the business. So if the business are going out on campus, are you sending them surveys? Are you finding out what's working well? Don't just feel that you need to do what all the others are doing. Don't just do what you did last year, and find out what works. I mean, when I first started looking after consulting, it was the hiring partners saying to me, you're never going to get 50-50 gender. And I quite love someone telling me I can't do something, right?
I saw your face as soon as you said that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like give me a challenge.
Yep.
And it took a couple of years, and it's not taking substandard quality candidates, but it's going to take longer and it's going to be harder, but I'm going to be strategic about this. And who do I need to know and who do I need to speak to and what do we need to invest in to get where we need to be? And it's absolutely possible to get your unfair share of talent, but it takes time and effort and investment, and they're not always possible.
I think part of it is also, like you were saying, is that doing that retrospective, doing that look back and understanding, well, this is what we've done before, this is what worked, this is what hasn't, but then being able to take them, play the long game.
Yes, it's absolutely the long game.
Yeah.
And going back, and it is hard to play the long game in the graduate space because, as we know, Gen Z aren't necessarily going to stay with employers for years and years and years.
Well, I think we keep telling them that too, right? You know, as a society, we've said, like you were saying before, 6 different careers, 12 different employers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We've actually created the environment for these graduates these days of going, we know you're going to leave. And so you've almost humanized the notion of we don't expect you to stay.
Yeah, well, we'd love them to stay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the really funny thing, right, is that, again, you know, like we were saying about the tech sector and talking to STEM students, society and, you know, to be fair, employers, we've all kind of said you will have all these different careers, you know, and that's their baseline expectation now is, you know, oh, I'm going to have 12 jobs.
Yeah.
I probably need to go out and find my next job because, you know, I'm only going to be working 30, 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
If I've got to squeeze 12 jobs into that, you know, that's at most 3 and a bit years, maybe 4 per role.
Yeah. So my advice to the recruiters would be, if your firm can offer it, is to talk about internal mobility and to say that you can have multiple jobs and multiple careers with our firm if that's an option. So yes, maybe you're a graduate for 12 months and then you're promoted to analyst. And yes, you do something we need to help our grads realise is they need to walk before they can run, and that's a tricky lesson.
Yeah.
But once they have the skills and experience, how much they can be utilised on secondments, whether it's across the country, in other teams, overseas. You know, Deloitte Australia is part of Asia Pac. So once you've done a couple of jobs with specific clients, that skill set might be needed in those countries. And what I love about bringing in some of the directors and the partners and the managers to student events is for them to say, I've been with Deloitte for this long, you know, I've worked, you know, in the market and I've worked at other big 4 or mid-tiers or whatever, but this is what I've done with Deloitte, and I started here and then I did that and then I did that, and I spoke to my coach about what I wanted to do. And if you're a good performer, we want to help you achieve your goals and we want to retain you, and we take that internal career path really seriously. And I think all firms should do that. You want to retain your good talent while let them walk out the door. And I know, you know, it's a challenging market, if businesses aren't doing as well, you know, there have been slowdowns in certain markets and, you know, businesses have been hit hard and budgets aren't always as high and there's not always as much headcount. You know, some areas do well and others don't. But even where those areas aren't doing as well, just looking at those staff and going, they're really good, they've got these great skills, can we put them over here instead? And I know I'm taking that an extra step, but I mean, those are the sorts of things that make me really happy when I see my grads grow and develop and move around the firm and achieve amazing things. That's why I continue to do what I do.
And becomes even more important when we're talking about niche talent pools, right? Of going, it's one thing to try and grow the talent pool. It's another thing to recruit. It's even more important to retain that sliver of niche talent that we can get, because if we can't, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. You know, we will continually be going back to a very finite, small pool of students and going, please come and work for us, please come and work for us. But then we're not giving them the experience. The managers aren't as invested. You know, we've got to, I think it's the challenge that a lot of TA professionals face is going, we're just looking outside the business.
Yeah.
You know, we almost, you know, what you're saying is it seems as though we've got to look as much inward and fixing, not necessarily fixing, but, massaging, creating the right environments, showing them the opportunities there as it is just bringing that talent in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. There is nothing sadder for me when you find great talent and you place them in the business and they don't have the great experience that I've said they're going to get.
Yeah.
And they should have. And it's not necessarily the firm's fault. There might be something small that happened. Maybe a coach forgot to tell someone they were going on leave and didn't collect them on their first day to, take them around and introduce them to the team. But those little things do make such a difference. So in my role, I am just recruitment, but I know a lot of grad recruiters also do the training and do the development. So it depends on what your volume is, I think, as to how much you can do. But absolutely, I think, and especially in that niche market, remembering how small it is and remembering that candidate care and that customer service, you need to give a good experience to everybody, even if you're not placing them, because they know someone else studying that course, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it makes good business sense, because even if somebody isn't quite ready for your program now, they might get a job at another firm, build up 2 years experience, get some more life experience, work experience. They're ready. They want to come and apply as a senior analyst later. If you gave them a great experience, they'll come back to your firm in the future. So I think that's certainly another thing. I think it should be 101, but I think in high volume, I don't necessarily think everybody pays enough attention to that.
Yeah, and I think, it's a challenge, I guess, within the industry of being so outwardly facing, right? We sometimes forget, or it's not within our job remit to then go back and look internally and say, hey, we've recruited every accountant that we possibly could.
Yeah.
Are we still retaining them?
Yeah, yeah. And it certainly gets to the point where I do say to the team or my COO at the end of the year and just say, I don't think there is any stone unturned. I don't think we can fill these last 3 positions that are only available because someone deferred their studies or someone's moving interstate or wherever it might is. Rather than provide you with substandard talent, I would rather re-advertise this role last year and get you someone to start in July, as opposed to find you someone that is below bar earlier. And they really appreciate that honesty.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. But it's also just making sure they're looking at potential.
Yep.
Because, when I say niche market, lots of applications, but not necessarily the right quality that you're looking for in terms of, whatever your business might be.
Your Deloitte success profile. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the 3 things that you've just mentioned all have a cost to the business. So getting a hire wrong has a cost to the business. Retention has a big cost to the business. There's healthy retention, and then there's real problem retention. And then it's the candidate experience. It's Deloitte. As you mentioned earlier, every Deloitte has a brand, and it's a bit of a boomerang. They could come back in 5 years' time, and you want to give them a great experience. As well. So I think they've all got a tangible line to return on investment if you do get it right. So it's certainly worth paying attention to, for sure.
And I think it's my brand. People might think, it's the firm's brand, but it's my personal brand, and that's important to me. And it's not about me being famous or anything. Sure, I'd love to be known as, one of the best audit recruiters. Yes, I want all the students to know me.
It's integrity,
but it has to be also the right candidate for the right opportunity. But it's important, for me, and I think because I care about the business success, my team, and a lot of students, because I've recruited so many people over the last 10 years. Like, I want the business to succeed, and the business is good to me, and challenging times, but so many rewarding times for everyone too.
I think we've covered so much in this one episode, but focused on that niche market. There are so many gems, and I'm sure people will reach out to you.
I'm sure there's lots I forgot to say that I meant to say, but
episode 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Heather, it was great to have you on.
Thank you.
I think, like with all of the experienced professionals that we've brought on here, if you're open to people reaching out and connecting,
Yep.
what's the best way for them to do it?
Oh,
I think I'm going to know because you might have already name dropped it, but just to make sure.
I have. LinkedIn just works so well for me. And I think because I work flexibly, I drown in emails, especially in busy season. So, yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn or see me at a AAGE event or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining and sharing.
My pleasure. Anytime.